how do you take a written source of material and make it sound dynamic and engaging, or maybe even just when you're talking, how can you speak in a way that impacts others and makes them actually not only hear what you say, but actually be impacted by it? Well, today we're going to be continuing our exploration here at the Express, where we take a source, a poem, and talk about ways that we can use it to become more dynamic speakers. Good morning, guys. Good evening. Good afternoon. My name is Jeff, and welcome back to the Express. We're going to be looking at a piece today. We have a couple people helping us out in that journey. I'm joined by Alyssa. What's up to Alyssa? And also Ganchiam. What's up to Ganchiam? How are you both?
I'm good.
Okay, I like good. Good
Pretty
sounds good to
good.
me. Pretty good sounds good to me too. Okay. Well, to you both, I'm going to share my screen. Alyssa, did you receive the text? I don't know if you were able to listen to it or not.
Yes, I memorized it.
Oh, you're a fast memorizer. It's much better than me. We have to do a video just talking about memorization techniques. But okay. So here is our baseline. So this is a piece by Wallace Stevens. We're just looking at the very first stanza, which is of the poem of the surface of things. Um, Ganchi, I'm going to start with you. Take a moment to kind of just read this and then read it to yourself. And then whenever you're ready, you can read it out loud to me because I kind of just want to see what you do with it. By the way,
Yeah,
for
I'm
people,
ready.
you ready? Okay, just real quick. Well, for people who are watching, whether right now or in the future, I would encourage you to kind of take your recorder out. You can use your phone, or you can use, if you have a headset, you can use that. But I would also record yourself just to give yourself a baseline to see what you do. And then we're going to play around a little bit to see if we can make it sound a little bit more dynamic. Okay, Ganshin, whenever you're ready, can you read this for me?
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. But when I walk, I see that it consists of three or four hills and a cloud.
Okay, can you read that one more time for me?
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. But when I walk, I see that it consists of three or four hills and a cloud.
Okay, thank you very much for reading that. I appreciate it. Okay, Alyssa, are you able to?
Uh, Thank you, Gotcha, for reading that. That's the text. I'm so confused.
Mm,
Okay. Um, in my room, the world is beyond my understanding. But when I walk, I see that it consists of three or four clouds. Three or four hills and a cloud.
good. No, that's perfect. Okay, can you read that one more time for me?
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. But when I walk, I see that it consists of three or four hills and a
Okay, thank you so much for reading that again. All right. So one of the things I've noticed from both of your speech, and in fact, I have a video that's going to be coming out ideally later today that's going to be exploring this a little bit more. And the thing that I'm seeing is that we're using a lot of very short thought groups. Okay, the way I see a lot of us chunking this is we're doing in my room, the world is beyond my understanding. So you may notice that a general pattern here, each of our thought groups here is more or less 3 syllables. Maybe 4 words max. I mean 4 syllables, 5 syllables max, 2 or 3 words. But when I walk, I see that it consists of 3 or 4 hills and the clouds. That's more or less what we're doing. And that's not a problem, but what it can do is it can be a little bit disruptive. It never is going to allow us to flow because we're pretty much chunking very short sections over and over again. And one of the things we find is that if we're able to use some longer thought groups, that's going to help us to play around with some other areas of contrast too. So I'm not saying to make every single thought group long, but I am saying, hey, maybe we can extend some of these, and that may allow us some greater room for play. Okay, but let's talk really quick about why I'm hearing a lot of these short thought groups. There's a central part of American English where when we speak, your listener is listening for moments where your pitch goes up because that's going to indicate stress. And so if we have lots of sections where the pitch moves from a lower pitch to a higher pitch, the listener hears stress. The other part of this too is that when we're chunking, the groups of words that go together before our next group of words, those are called thought groups. Every thought group is going to have one primary stress. And so if we have lots of moments where the pitch rises, that creates lots of thought groups. And if I have lots of thought groups in a short time frame, that's going to make things sound a little bit choppier. So for instance, in this very first line, so we have this phrase, in my room, the world is beyond my understanding. So if I read it like that, you can hear there's lots of little breaks, right? In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. Again, nothing wrong with that. There's times where that could be a really effective rhetorical device. But let's contrast that with if we just had two thought groups. For our exercise right now, I'm going to make it pretty balanced. So I'm just going to stick a thought group right in the middle. Okay, so instead of saying, in my room, the world is beyond my understanding, what if I read it like this? In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. Do you hear a difference in rhythm between in my room, the world is beyond my understanding, and in my room, the world is beyond my understanding? Do you hear a difference in the rhythm there?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. And that's not to say that one is right and one is wrong. They each have their place. The problem I see with a lot of people who have, especially people who have learned English, is that we're sticking with the first one. We're always using short thought groups. And so that's when it becomes a problem. When it's the only tool we have. You need a screwdriver, but all you have is a hammer. That's a problem. Okay. So I want you to see if you guys can alternate between those two. So the first time I want you to say it with the four thought groups, and then I want to try to do it just with two. Okay, so Ganchiam, I'll start with you. So let's start off with four. Can you say for me, in my room, the world is beyond my understanding? Can you try that for me, Ganchiam?
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding.
Okay. One little difference between mine and yours. You had the four groups, which was great. If you hear mine again in the replay, you're going to see I used a descending pattern. In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. So it just goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Drop, 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 drop. Yours stayed at the same level. In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. Do you see it's a very flat? Every single thought group is more or less at the same pitch.
Yes.
English in general doesn't really like that. Doesn't really like it because there's no contrast. So if you change the thought group, the central idea in English is if you change the thought group, you gotta change the pitch. Change the thought group, change the pitch. Change the thought group, change the pitch. Change the thought group, change the pitch. You gotta move. You can't stay static. Okay. Did you want to try reading that one more time, maybe with a descending pattern?
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding.
Okay, so let's talk about what you did right there. You were like, in my room, the world. So you did drop there, great. But then what happened is beyond my understanding. So what happens, this is what I call bobbing. This is where we just alternate between two pitches and we just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's like, in my room, the world is beyond my understanding. Do you like it if I talk like this for everything I say? How's that sound to you?
Yeah, I just pressed beyond.
Yeah. But here's the thing, you went back to where you started. You can't go back. Can't go back. At least you can't go back too often. Okay, because otherwise it's going to sound distracting. Imagine if I talked like this for every single thing I said. That's challenging to listen to. It's very demanding for your listener. Okay, so I want to try this again. We're going to try a descending pattern for the 4. Okay, so again, in my room, the world is beyond my understanding. Can you try that?
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding.
What happened that time is your second and your third thought groups were at the same pitch. You're like, in my room, the world is beyond. It's very flat. Gotta go lower on your third. I'll give you one more shot at this. Can you try again?
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding.
I think the only place you dropped was on the last thought group. That's the only place where I heard you go down. All the other thought groups were the same. So I really need you to listen to this on the replay because we're getting stuck on pitches. Ganshim, can you just say 1, 2, 3, 4? Can you do that?
1, 2, 3, 4.
I didn't hear the 4. Can you do that one more time? 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. I mean that's basically what we're looking for. 1, 2, 3, 4. In my room, the world is beyond my understanding.
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding.
The only place you went down was on the 4th one. Okay, so I really need you to practice that again. Okay. Before we practice just transitioning this from 4 thought groups to 2, let's give Alyssa a chance. I want to see what Alyssa does with pitch. Okay. Alyssa, can you say this? We're just working on the first line again. 4 thought groups. In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. Can you do that?
In
In
my
my
room,
room, the
the
world.
world.
For Alyssa, sorry. Alyssa?
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding.
Okay. I can hear some movement down. That's solid. Do you think you could double the range?
In my room, the world is my understanding. The world is beyond my understanding.
I think your range actually got smaller. I don't think it got wider. Can you start higher? Start real high on in my room and go real low on my understanding.
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding.
Alyssa, you can go way higher than that. What's
In
the
my
highest you can
room,
go?
the world. In the room, the world is beyond my understanding.
Here we go. Now we're starting to get somewhere. Okay. So here's the thing: is that for where you start your sequences, if you start really low, you're putting yourself in a difficult position. It's kind of like because basically what's happening is it's almost like an airport. You're making a runway. Now I'm not a pilot. I've never flown a plane before, but I imagine that if I were a pilot and I wanted to land a plane, I would probably want a long runway. Probably don't want a short runway. And so here's the thing: when you're saying sentences and you start at a really low pitch, especially if your voice has trouble going to lower pitches, well, you're making yourself a short runway. Because if I start here and I need to go down, and I need to go down, and I need to go down, like you're just not giving yourself a lot of room, right? But if I start higher, if I start here, well, now I can go here, and 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 now I can go. See how much longer my runway is just because I started higher. So we want to be mindful of that. Listen, I'm going to stick with you for a moment. So we just did it with 4 thought groups. Let's try to condense this down to 2. Okay, so I want you to do 4. It's like, in my room, the world is beyond my understanding. And then I want you to do 2. In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. Can you try that?
In my world, no. In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. In my room, the world is beyond my understanding.
Is beyond my understanding. So what's happening here, we're still going up. So instead of saying is beyond my understanding, because if I hear that, I'm hearing 2 thought groups. So we had those 2 key moments where the pitch moves up. Okay. Can you say is beyond my understanding. Is beyond my understanding. Is beyond my understanding.
It's beyond my understanding.
Go weaker on
Oh,
beyond. Go weaker on beyond. Is beyond my
understanding
understanding.
is beyond my understanding.
Do you hear that? Do you hear that transition? Like is be. Okay. Here's the thing. Listeners in English are very attuned to pitch. Very attuned to pitch. Like if, for instance, if, for those of you who speak a tonal language, like if you're speaking Vietnamese or Mandarin, they're very attuned to tone. If you speak in other languages, like if you speak like Italian or Spanish, these are languages that are very attuned to consonant sounds. Consonant sounds are very strong and important. English speakers are very attuned to pitch because pitch is the tool that we use to separate words when we use linking, we use reductions, and things like that. And so if I say is beyond my understanding, that's going to sound a little choppy. But if I keep moving down, is beyond my understanding, is beyond my understanding. Can you try saying that again for me, Alyssa? Is beyond my understanding.
Is beyond my understanding.
Can you hear a difference between is beyond my understanding and is beyond my understanding? Can you hear a difference?
Yeah, to me, beyond is more stress than understanding. The first one.
Yes.
And then
Well, they're certainly competing, right? We don't want words to compete with stress. I don't want to. I'll put like I don't want to like sit here thinking like, oh, did she stress that? Did she not stress that? No, I want to be very clear. You either didn't or you did. I don't want to be debating. Okay, so don't go up and pitch on beyond. Okay.
Okay.
Can you do it again?
What the phrase is beyond my understanding.
Yeah, it's beyond my understanding.
Is beyond my understanding.
Okay. I like this a little bit more. Can you do the whole line, starting from in my room?
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding.
Can you say that 3 times?
In my room, okay. In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. Is beyond my understanding.
Okay, I'm gonna pause you there because we're a little bit inconsistent. You're changing your. I don't know if you're aware of this. You're changing your stresses. Sometimes you're saying in my room the world, and then sometimes you're saying in my room the world. Either of them can work. It's fine. But so I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I just want us to be aware of what we're doing. Okay. So you're changing your stresses there. You're also changing in the second part too, right? Because sometimes you're stressing beyond, like it's beyond my understanding. But then sometimes you're stressing understanding. It's beyond my understanding. So for these two thought groups, you're basically giving me 4 different patterns. Sometimes you're saying, in my room, the world is beyond my understanding. Sometimes you're saying, in my room, the world is beyond my understanding. Sometimes you're saying, in my room, the world is beyond my understanding. Sometimes you're saying, in my room, the world is beyond my understanding. So we're getting some different versions. None of them is necessarily wrong, but it can become a mistake when we're not in control of what we're doing, because they all mean different things. Okay.
Okay.
Questions for me so far from either Gachim or Alyssa, or anyone who's watching?
I got, to be honest with you, I freaked out a bit internally. I was like, which one should I focus first, world or room? I was like, beyond or understanding. Yeah, I was aware of the inconsistencies.
Okay. So here's the thing. When we're talking, if we have doubts about what we say, I guarantee you your listener's going to have doubts. If you don't know what you're doing, why would anyone else around you feel comfortable? Like in some ways, it's better to commit to the wrong choice than to not commit to anything. Because there's not really, you can make anything work. Okay. Gotcha, him just dropped. We'll see if he comes back. Other questions for me before we play a little bit with the second part of this?
So you got those 4 options then.
There's always
Like
options.
you just make it consistent.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's better to just chop them down to 2 thought groups.
So again, I don't want to say do 4 thought groups, do 2 thought groups. They each have their purpose. The problem is if I do this whole thing with everything a short thought group, like if I do everything like this, like in my room, the world is beyond my understanding. But when I walk, I see that it consists of 3 or 4 hills and a cloud. Versus if I do something like in my room, the world's beyond my understanding. But when I walk, I see it consists of 3, 4 hills and a cloud.
Mm.
Do you hear the difference?
Yeah.
Okay. This isn't a question of right or wrong. This is a question of understanding what your tendencies are. Because what I see with a lot of students is they can do the first one pretty easily, but they have a hard time doing the second.
Right. Why is that?
Good question. I mean, I think some of it's because English is a stress time language, and a lot of us are coming from a first language that is syllable time. It's if you speak Japanese, if you speak a Slavic language, if you speak a lot of your Romance languages, if you speak a lot of Indian languages or dialects, these are all syllable time languages. Okay? And syllable time languages are very regular and they're precise and they give equal weight to everything. They're very democratic. English is not that. English says if you are stressed, I will give you all the power. It means that I can take words and reduce them and make them weaker. Like I can say, like for instance, if I were syllable timed, I might say like I see that it consists of 3 or 4 hills and a cloud. It's very syllable timed, very equal weight. Versus if I use reductions and linking in more of a stress timed, I might say it more like, I see it consists of 3, 4 hills and a cloud. Do you see how what ends up happening is words start kind of merging together a little bit, parts get weaker, there's more linking, there's less clarity on the individual sounds. And for a lot of us who have learned English, that's really scary because we've learned to speak perfectly and to make sure that if there's a syllable, if it's spelled, I need to say it. But if native speakers don't talk like that, I don't say that it consists. I say that it consists,
Right.
that it consists, that it consists, not that it consists, it's that it consists, things like that. So we don't need to speak perfectly. And in fact, speaking perfectly sounds imperfect.
Chip, can I read? Just you read that way.
Could you repeat that, Kanchim? You said you wanted to read?
Can I read again? Just you read this paragraph.
As in, so just to make sure I understand, so you're trying to read with longer thought groups instead of shorter thought groups?
I try a longer paragraph.
Okay. Before we have you do that, let me give you some guidance, because I know we're getting up against time. Okay. So I'm going to give you some thought groups to use. I'm going to give you some words to stress. All you have to do is stress the words I tell you and use the thought groups I tell you. I give you the map. All you have to do is follow the map. Easy, right? So we're going to stress world. We're going to stress beyond. We're going to stress walk. We're going to stress see. And then we're going to stress cloud. Okay. So, Alyssa, I'm going to talk you through what I just did, okay? The first thought group is going to be in my room, the world, stress on world. The second thought group is going to be is beyond my understanding, stress on beyond. The next thought group is going to be but when I walk, stress on walk. The fourth thought group is going to be stress on see. I see that it consists of 3. And then the last thought group is going to be or four hills and a cloud, stressed on cloud. Okay. So in my room, the world is beyond my understanding. But when I walk, I see that it consists of three or four hills and a cloud. That's going to be your general rhythm. Okay. So I just read it with the thought groups I marked off and the stresses I indicated. Ghanshyam, do you want to try?
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. But when I walk, I see that it consists of three or four hills and cloud.
Ghanshyam, I got some bad news, okay? We added a lot of thought groups in there. Maybe more than where we started. What we have to keep in mind when you're in a thought group, as soon as you go up and pitch, your listener is going to hear stress. The other thing that's happening too is you're adding a lot of these pauses. And when your listener hears pauses, that's an indication to them very often that a thought group has ended. Okay. Let's do this in the interest of time. Alyssa, we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to read for you a thought group. I just want you to repeat after me, okay?
Okay.
Are you ready? I'll hold your hand through this.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's our first thought group, okay? In my room, the world.
In my room, the world.
Good. Let's add a second thought group, okay? In my room, the world is beyond my understanding.
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding.
Go a little weaker on understanding. So instead of is beyond my understanding, because that sounds a little bobbing. I want to try to remove that. In my room, the world is beyond my understanding.
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding.
Better. Okay. Let's add a third thought group, okay? Give me a moment. Okay. So, in my room, the world is beyond my understanding. But when I walk,
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. But when I walk,
okay, I think I was a little higher in pitch on, but when I walk. Okay, just a note. Okay, but let's keep going. All right, so we have four thought groups now. In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. But when I walk, I see that it consists of three.
in my room, the world is beyond my understanding. But when I walk, I see that it consists of three.
Okay, now we're going to wrap up. Okay. In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. But when I walk, I see that it consists of three or four hills and a cloud.
In my room, the world
Yeah,
is
it's
beyond my.
raining.
Sorry, I'll bring on Gotcha in a moment. Let's do that again. I'll read it one more time. Okay. In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. But when I walk, I see that it consists of three or four hills and a cloud.
In my room, the world is beyond my understanding. But when I walk, I see that it consists of three or four hills and a cloud.
Better. So what I would say is go back to the beginning of this class, to the first time you read this, and just see how the rhythm is now very different to where we started. Okay.
Okay. Can I be honest?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm doing two things at once. It's like pay attention to the word stress.
Mm-hmm.
I also pay attention to the rhythm.
Right. So here's the thing. This is an exercise. Okay. Bring on Gotcha again. So what I would say, so we're going to wrap up. This is an exercise. It's not going to be perfect, and it's not, maybe as you do it, it may not even sound natural. Okay. The goal of this exercise is to get us listening for different rhythms and trying to incorporate rhythms that we are less used to using. Because right now, many of us, like I said earlier, are used to using much shorter groupings when we talk. We're trying to break away from that. That's the goal. Yeah. So as you do the exercise, yeah, it's going to feel unnatural. It's going to feel like work. It's going to feel different, and that's okay. So we're just trying to experiment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, especially what I noticed also is like the pitch of every word, every last word of a thought group, whether it's higher in pitch or low in pitch, and it makes a difference.
Yeah,
That's my observation.
1000%. Yeah, I mean, what we see with a lot of students tend to overuse higher pitches and tend to go higher on final syllables, even though many of them are reduced, and so that has an impact on meaning because that's often that where a thought group ends very often has a big semantic function in terms of how you want your listener to interpret it. Like if I say like really, that doesn't mean the same thing as like really, which doesn't mean the same thing as like really, which doesn't mean the same thing as really. All those mean different things. And if you use the wrong one without knowing it, well, you've conveyed different information to your listener. English is not a tonal language, but it has tones. In fact, it has more tones than Mandarin, so we have to be mindful. Other final things for me before I head out?
Yeah, I just want to add something to what you said too. Like even the subtlest uh, pitch, like I wasn't really sure about how I ended the phrase "four hills and a cloud." It, to me, now I've been thinking about it. Um, it sounds like I ended it with a bang. It's like a piano, like boom. That.
Not necessarily wrong. Again, it comes down to what are you trying to convey. For our exercise, what we did with cloud was I put a stress on cloud. Okay,
Okay.
but so that may make it feel more forceful. You don't have to stress firm. You know, you could say like four hills and a cloud, four hills and a cloud. You know, that would be an example of what's a stress that actually goes soft.
Mm,
You know,
see.
but you're noticing the right things. I'm glad you're paying attention to these aspects.
It sounds like we're having a music class, but I don't even know how to play any musical instruments, but it sounds like
Maybe,
that.
I mean, I think of it the other way. What if music classes are actually language classes? You know,
Yeah,
there's a lot of just, there's a lot of parallels.
right.
A lot of parallels. Um, Kanchian, did you have any final questions or things before I head out?
No, I have no question.
Okay. So the final thing I'll say is
It's
that I would.
it's
It's okay.
it's raining. It's raining outside continuously. Here is a
Mm,
little network issue from my area.
got you. Well, hopefully the replay will come through clean. Okay. So what I would say is watch the beginning of the stream, watch the end, compare to different versions you guys made, and keep practicing. Thank you both for hanging out with me. I will see you all later. Okay.
Bye.
All right, take care.